Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Tommy vs. Time, the series where we try to cook recipes from cookbooks like Jamie Oliver's 15-minute meals, for example, and see if we can actually make the meals in the allotted amount of time. So today we're going to be making some crispy duck lettuce parcels, or lettuce salad, or lettuce wraps, whatever you want to call them, but basically some hoisin, some sesame, some delicious duck, some spices, some crunch. It's really got everything that you want. The question is, can we make it in the allotted amount of time? Now, speaking of time, guys, I would appreciate if you took the time to hit the like, subscribe, or that little dinner bell thingy so you can know when our next videos hit the old YouTube universe. Now, guys, before we jump into the ingredients, as always, let's check out some of that sweet B-roll.
Perfect.
Alright folks, so with that beautiful B-roll out of the way, it is time to go through our ingredients. Now naturally, for some lettuce parcels, you're going to need lettuce. So here we have 1 head of iceberg lettuce. To that you'll be adding 3 to 4 nests, or about 11 ounces of egg noodles. These are thin egg noodles, and I do recommend these because they just go better with this recipe. Those noodles, you're going to want to go ahead and grab yourself the next ingredient, which is limes, which you will try to juggle and realize that you don't know how to juggle and spill those everywhere. So we're just going to set those down like so. There we go. And yeah, 4 limes. To that you will add 1 large clove of garlic like so. To that you'll add 11 ounces or about 300 grams of silken tofu. Now I thought that was a bit too much, so I actually used about a quarter of this package, or about 200 grams, but choice is yours. Use as much or as little as you'd like. Next you'll want to grab yourself some fresh cilantro, about 5 or 6 sprigs should do the trick, followed by a bunch of baby radishes. Now as you can see, I don't have baby radishes, but just whatever radish you get, make sure you wash these, and I only use about 4 or 5 of these in the recipe. So go ahead and put those to the side because you need to grab yourself some microgreens. In this case, we have some pea shoots. Again, any microgreen is fine, but this is what I found at the grocery store, so microgreens. So for these lettuce parcels, we're going to need a nice sweet and sticky component, and that is going to come from our sauces. So we're going to go ahead and grab these 3 right here. So you've got yourself some sesame sauce, some hoisin sauce, and of course some sweet Thai sauce. Now sweet Thai sauce can be spicy sometimes, but just go ahead and pick whichever one you like. So that'll do it for the ingredients for our parcels or salad. Let's move these to the side and start with the rest. So for the duck, you're going to want to go ahead and grab yourself 2 7-ounce pieces of duck breast. Now, as you can see, these are different quality, different color, and different size. So do try to find yourself 2 that are even, but in any case, they should have a beautiful dark color on the bottom, the meat, and a nice white fat on top. So you can see really how large this one is compared to the other, but you get a general idea of what you're looking for. Now, obviously, this duck is still going to need a bit of flavor, so we're going to go ahead and add ourselves some Chinese 5-spice. We'll be using about 1 large tablespoon of this, guys, but you can use a little bit more if you think you need more coverage. To keep with the theme of Chinese cuisine, you're going to want to grab yourself a spicy pepper. In this case, this is a serrano pepper, I believe, but you could grab bird's eye chili peppers or really any spicy pepper that you like. Next, you'll want to grab 2 or 3 green onions. Again, guys, ideally find some that look a little bit fresher than this because the stalks here were a little bit on the flimsy side. However, these will do just fine as we're going to be cooking them down in some duck fat. For crunch, the recipe calls for cashews, but I only had some of these almonds kicking around, which we had roasted the other night. So go ahead and grab yourself a large handful of almonds or a nut of your choice. Cashews, again, is what's recommended, but these were available ready and actually a bit cheaper. So, easily replaceable, but almonds. Next, you're going to want to grab yourself about 2 tablespoons of raw sesame seeds. You could use white and black, you could use black ones or just white ones like I have, but any combination, just sesame seeds. Grab some. For another layer of sweet and sticky goodness, we're going to add some honey, about 1 tablespoon just to cover the duck once it's cooked. Finally, you'll need about 1 tablespoon of olive oil just to cook the duck. So that'll do it for our ingredient list for this recipe, guys. Now, what we need to do as always is go ahead, grab our timer, set it to 15 minutes, and let's get going. So with the timer set, you're going to want to go ahead and grab yourself a medium saucepan and begin to place your 3 to 4 nests of egg noodles in there. Now, as you can see, guys, these are quite small, but it's a per person thing, and they obviously expand quite a bit in the hot water. So go ahead and place the nest into the pot, and then we're going to go ahead and cover this with our already boiling water. Now, as you probably know by now, Jamie Oliver's book says that we should already have a pot of boiling water going on as to cut down time. It's not really makes the most sense, but go ahead and cover those noodles with the boiling water. Place your lid on top, cover, and just leave it off to the side to continue cooking. With the noodles tenderizing, we're going to go ahead and prep our duck. So gently lay it on your work surface like so, and begin to cut it into 1-inch strips. The idea here is to cube it into 1-inch cubes roughly, but as you can see, guys, there's a pretty large cap of fat, so you're going to have this rendered down hopefully in your pan. Now, of course, it's going to take a while, so we're going to go ahead and speed this up, but basically, when you're done, you should have all of your duck cubed up into about 1-inch pieces, and that should look something a little bit like this. So with that done, it is time to grab yourself a large bowl, which you're going to then sprinkle your perfect cubes of duck into, like so, before we add 1 large tablespoon of Chinese 5-spice. You will also want to season liberally with 3 or 4 pinches of kosher salt, followed by a couple of spins on the old pepper mill. With our seasoning done, go ahead and get your hands nice and dirty and just give this a quick mix, making sure to coat every piece as evenly as possible. So with the duck thoroughly coated, it is time to move to the stove where we have a cast iron on medium heat. Go ahead and put 1 tablespoon of oil and listen to the sizzle. The idea of the medium heat, guys, is that the fat renders out and you are left with crispy duck. Now, let's move to something else that's crispy, which is our salad. So grab your head of iceberg lettuce and cut that bad boy in half. And what we're going to want to do is remove the stem and then begin to peel off the layers of this lettuce so that we have these little parcels. Now, this was a bit of a messy process and actually a little bit of a time-consuming one as well. I'd recommend that you cut these into quarters instead and then begin to peel each layer so that you form these small little parcels for all your ingredients to go in. Additionally, we didn't actually need the entire head of lettuce because there's only 2 people eating, but there was plenty of leftovers, I promise you. So, if you're only 2 people, half a lettuce head should do. But if you're 4 people, then go ahead and use the entire head of lettuce and see if you can find yourself a serving dish that's big enough. In any case, once you've found your serving vessel, you should have something that looks a little bit like this. Now, it's time to move on to the next ingredient, which is going to be our radishes. Now, these are not baby radishes, but you're going to want to top and tail these and then just kind of give these a quick thin slice, and these will just be another topper for our salad. They add a nice kind of peppery hit, and they also have a little bit of crunch. With that done, it is time to check on our noodles. So go ahead and put down a protector there for our cutting board, grab your pot and lift the lid, and you can see that these noodles are ready. So we're going to go ahead and strain these out, guys. Then you're just going to transfer your strained noodles to a bowl before adding 1 to 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. Give that a quick mix and you should have some noodles that are beginning to absorb the flavor of the sesame oil and also have a pretty nice texture. Once these have cooled slightly, you can go ahead and top these onto your lettuce and you should begin to have a parcel that looks a little bit like this. Now, I know it doesn't look like much as of yet, but don't worry, guys, we have more ingredients to add on top of this. And we'll start with our spicy pepper. So this is simple, just quickly cut this into thin slices. You can remove the seeds if you want, but in this case, this is a fairly mild pepper, and we just go ahead and use the whole thing. Once that's done, move that to the side, and then grab your green onion and do the exact same thing. Now, you may think that this is going to be a topper that we're just simply going to throw on, but you're going to be mistaken, and I will show you why in a second. Now, the next thing we got to do is check on our duck, which has finally begun to render and release some of that fat. And while it's been doing that, the little bit of time that we spent doing it, we've also realized that we've actually run out of time. So we're going to go ahead and set a new timer here and hope that we can finish this in the next few minutes. Anyways, as I was saying, that duck fat is useful to us because we're going to be throwing all of that into the duck fat, followed by your sesame seeds and, of course, our already toasted almonds. With everyone in the pot, it's time to stir this up, and you're going to have a beautiful aromatic topper for our lettuce parcels. And guys, this smells amazing. The duck fat lends a richness to it that's really nice, and as you can see, it's got this beautiful glossy color, and I just can't wait to put this on top of our salad. So with that done, it is time to move on to our dressing, and it's a very simple dressing, guys. We're going to grab ourselves 2 limes, cut those in half. Use the juice of both as well as some hoisin sauce. So go ahead and grab your hoisin, about 1/4 cup should do, followed by the juice of your limes. Now in this case, you can use all of them or half of them or whatever you want. You judge, just taste as you go. With the requisite amount of lime juice in there, you're gonna go ahead and grab your garlic and your garlic press. So go ahead and drop your garlic into the dressing, and we're just going to pick that out of there. There we go. Put it into the garlic press this time, and then go ahead and press it. So with everything in the bowl, go ahead and give this a quick stir, and you should have the makings of a very simple but delicious dressing that we'll be using to top our parcels. So while we're on the topic of sweet and sticky things, we're going to go ahead and grab our duck and get our 1 tablespoon of honey on top. Now drizzle this over, guys, and give this a quick mix, making sure to incorporate that honey on all the pieces of duck, because we're going to be dumping a few extra sesame seeds on top just to give it a little extra pop. And with that, you're going to go ahead and mix one more time. This is optional, but I really think it does make it look a little bit more appetizing. And speaking of things that are appetizing, let's go ahead and grab our lifeless blob of tofu. Anyway, shelve that tofu hate for later, because we got to cut this into cubes. And now you can cut this to any size you want. So in this case, I'm doing, I believe, what are about 1/4-inch cubes. That should look something like this. So with your flavorless cubes to the side, go ahead and grab your salad and just quickly top the salad with said cubes. Next, we'll be topping the parcels with something that actually does have flavor, and that is our duck. So spread that evenly across the salad, or not, depending how you see fit, and just make sure you get enough in there because this stuff is pretty tasty. Another thing that is super tasty is this. This stuff was really delicious. I recommend you put as much as you possibly can, but go ahead and sprinkle that evenly across your salad as well. Next, we're going to place down our thinly sliced radishes in no particular order, followed by our microgreens, which we're going to drop dramatically from a height that you can't see, just to make it look a little bit more pretty. Next, we're going to add our hoisin, garlic, and lime dressing over top. So go ahead and evenly coat your parcels with said dressing before topping with some cilantro. Again, guys, you can sprinkle as much or as little of this as you like. I think the cilantro adds a nice herbaceous note. And speaking of notes, take notes as I put Thai chili sauce directly onto our tofu so that it has some kind of flavor. Finally, go ahead and top this with some lime wedges. And there you go, guys. There is our crispy duck lettuce parcels. They've got tons of texture, tons of color, and they look amazing. I can prove it looks amazing because look at that close-up. Look at the glimmering, look at the colors, look at the textures. I cannot wait to dig in. Now, speaking of digging in, you're going to want to go ahead and grab yourself a more reasonable sized plate and place 1 to 2 of these lettuce parcels on there. Now, guys, there's no real easy way to eat these, so just go ahead and, it's kind of finger food. Just make a mess, grab what you can, and go ahead and take a bite. And I will say, guys, that this is delicious. It has tons of texture, beautiful fat, some acid from the lime, just all kinds of different notes and textures, and it's really wonderful. I definitely think this is something that you could make fairly quickly and for a lot of people. But honestly, this is so tasty, you may not want to share anyways. And speaking of sharing, I'm going to go ahead and share the scoring for this meal. So unsurprisingly, as you saw, we failed on time. We had to reset a timer fairly early on through the process, and if you're wondering, it actually took us 11 minutes over. So this is almost a 26 to 27 minute meal. That is probably the longest we've gone over, so yeah, not the best. And on top of that, even despite all that extra time that we used, the duck still had a lack of texture that I would have. I really wish it had been a bit crispier. So I think if you take an extra few minutes, maybe crisp the duck up first by putting its skin side down and then heating it up in a cold pan till it's crispy, the fat renders out, you can then maybe put it in the oven. It may take you 15 minutes or so just to do that alone. However, when you pull out that duck, you'll actually be able to slice that into cubes, then coat it, and maybe have a little bit better flavor and texture. In any case, this was a pretty spectacular fail by 11 minutes, literally almost double the amount of time. So I don't know who's going to be able to make this in 15 minutes, but unless you're Jamie Oliver or you're full of crap, this is not a 15-minute meal. Now to more positive things, let's move on to taste. And guys, this is definitely tasty. I mean, it's got tons of textures, tons of flavor. I just got a little bit of everything. And I really have to say, I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. The only reason I don't give this a 10 out of 10 is because that duck is missing that traditionally just crunchy texture that you're always looking for. Next, let's look at ease of use. Now, this was not a particular difficult meal to put together. There is a lot of steps and a lot of layering, but really there aren't really a lot of difficult techniques. It just, again, just took a while to put together. So I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Finally, let's look at the cost. Now, you probably already guessed that this is going to be a bit more of an expensive meal because duck is not cheap. So while we did save some money by not using cashews and replacing those with almonds, overall this meal was $26.42. That's a per plate cost of $6.60. Now, I will say that realistically, you could probably feed more than 4 people with this. It's a pretty substantial meal, and it could probably parse out to 5 or 6 portions. So overall, how did this crispy duck lettuce parcels recipe do? Well, if you're doing any math along the way, it scores a 22 out of a possible 30. Now, this actually matches exactly what we did last week with our broccoli pasta, and you can actually check that video out up here. The difference is this tasted way better than that recipe, and of course, the cost was a little bit higher, so there's how you have your same score. So there we go, guys. We are at the end of this video. Thank you to everyone who stayed and watched throughout the entirety of the video. I do appreciate it. As always, guys, thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. We will see you in the next one.